Welcome to Build Your Maverick Business, the podcast for underdog, outlier, and renegade entrepreneurs. Brought to you by Strange Creative Studio. If you dream of going off on your own and launching your rebel empire, but don't know where to start, you're in the right place. We'll teach you how to use mindset, branding, and practical advice to build a killer business and transform your world. And now, here's your host, founder of Strange, Alex Pitt.
Hello, my loves. How are we doing since I last spoke to you? I haven't quite woken up today, so bear with. I should have made another coffee before we started, but it can go either way when I do that. It can go either way and I could just end up a bit manic and kind of losing the plot a little bit. So no, we're going to stick to the water and we are going to get straight into part 2 of the criticism, how to deal with criticism episode after one little bit of admin. Now, I am hosting a webinar, which sounds very boring, but I'm hosting a webinar on Tuesday, 30th of August, 1:00 p.m. London time. So this is going to be a very kind of focused hour of me talking you through how to craft a brand which gets people obsessed. It's called How to Craft a Killer Brand. I'm going to have some slides for you. It's just going to be me, maybe 1 or 2 members of the Strange team, depending on how brave I feel and how good at admin I feel that day. But yes, it will be a really, hopefully, very useful hour, a branding power hour, if you will. I'm going to talk you through my own story in a bit more detail. I'm going to talk you through some tips and steps for you to work through to create your own brand. It is a ticketed event. You can buy tickets at Eventbrite, and I am going to put the link to that in the show notes of this episode. And that is my admin done. So anyway, how are you all? I hope you've had a fantastic week since I spoke to you last. And yeah, we've got part 2 of how to deal with criticism. So I was kind of writing up my notes for this episode and I was thinking, okay, what's the best example to use of how to do this next part, of how to deal with the criticism once you've decided whether or not it's going in the fuck it bucket. Once we've decided if we're actually going to listen to this person. I always talk about these random waves of inspiration that come to me, almost like the universe is just begging me to carry on with this podcast, which I am fine with. But yeah, I was sat in my local pub, one of my locals, a few days ago, and a scenario just presented itself, which perfectly illustrates what I want to go into in this week's episode. So I will tell you what happened when I was in my local t'other day. So it's a lovely day out. So I decided to go and sit in a beer garden somewhere just for a little bit before I headed back to have my dinner. And this is a pub which is like a lot of the local pubs around here in West London. A lot of students work in there because these young people are at university, so they need to fund themselves. They need to pay for that beer money. And so they work in a lot of the local pubs. Now, I have always found these staff to be absolutely lovely, very cheery. And I've done a bit of bar work. I am amazed that they're able to stay so cheery. It's not fucking fun. So I walked into this pub, ordered my absolute favourite, a pint of Beavertown neck oil, please. And this lovely chap poured it for me and put the payment through the card machine. I said, that will be X amount of pounds, please. And I went to pay. Now I touched my card on the reader and nothing happened. It just said that it was processing. So I sort of stood there. Now about a minute went past and nothing was happening. I wasn't in a rush. I mean, I'm stood in a pub. I'm clearly not in a rush to get anywhere. So I waited patiently and he apologised. He said, I'm sorry, this has taken a while. We've had some issues with our card machines today. I was like, don't worry about it, mate. So eventually my card got declined. Now I know that I have money in the bank, so I knew it wasn't anything to do with me. So he asked me if I could go over to the next card machine, if I could tap my card on that one. And that went through straight away. Said, thank you very much. Off I went. He apologised again, bless him. Off I went, sat in the beer garden to enjoy my drink in the sun. About a heartbeat after I'd sat down with my drink, this couple pulled up in a very expensive car, very fancy car, very nicely dressed, and into the pub they went. Now, a couple of minutes later, they came out with their drinks. They sat down in the table right in front of me. And the barman followed them out and said, I'm so sorry, your card payment didn't go through. And this woman looked at him with a face like a slapped ass, like absolute thunder on this woman's face. And this guy had the card machine, same guy that served me, had the card machine. He said, I'm really sorry, do you mind if I try again? And she just looked at him with absolute daggers and said, well, I hope you're going to go and get me the receipt for the payment that was declined. And he was like, yep, yep, I can go and do that in a minute. And so she very begrudgingly got her card back out, tapped it back on the card reader. And then as he went to walk away, she said, oh, and make sure you bring me the receipt for the second payment too. Now I'm thinking, you just rocked up in a fucking Tesla. I'm sure your children aren't going to go hungry if you get charged twice for that glass of red. Darling, calm the fuck down. But anyway, you never know what people's situations are, so I tried to reserve judgment. Anyway, bloke went back into the pub. He came back with the receipts. Long story short, this carried on going for a little while. She wasn't satisfied that she had enough proof that her money wasn't going to be taken twice. So eventually, this poor sod, this poor student, had to go in and print out the transactions from the back end of their system to prove that one payment had not gone through, the other one had. He said to her, if there are any issues, you can call this number and speak to my manager, and I promise that you will not be charged twice. And she said, well, that's not good enough. I want you to write your name on this A4 sheet so that she could hold him personally accountable if for any reason she was charged for these drinks. Now, this is a Green King pub. So if you're listening from outside the UK, Green King pubs are a chain which do not charge extortionate amounts of money for drinks. Like, making this poor lad's hell over what could not have been more than £10 was just fucking ridiculous to me. Anyway, my point is, I'm not ranting about how some people just need a fucking day off. My point is that in this situation, the circumstance was exactly the same. The card machine was fucking up. Now, two people, myself and this woman, had completely polar opposite reactions to this situation. I was very happy to stand there for a minute. I just accepted that my card hadn't gone through the first time. I have Apple Pay, so it came up the second time saying that I had a transaction. It's just not the biggest deal in the world to me. To this woman, it was fucking catastrophic. And the reason that I lead with this example is that the way that people react differently to the same circumstance is perfect evidence as to why you need to stop internalising criticism and work out what's true, what you believe, and what serves you. Now, if someone criticises you and it doesn't serve you, it can be a them problem, all right? Now, last week we went through a set of steps and we decided whether or not we're going to listen to someone who has criticised us, who's given us negative feedback. We decided they're not going to go in the fuck it bucket. There is something in what they're saying. For whatever reason, we think this person should be listened to. There is some gravity in that criticism. Now, the first thing that we need to do once we decided that we're going to listen to them is separate what is true from what you believe. All right, what is true versus what you believe. Now, in the example of the lady kicking off in the pub, what is true is that the card machine wasn't working. What is true is that one person wasn't bothered at all, the other person very much was. Okay, that is the truth. Now, if we get into the mindset of that poor bloke, the poor student that was serving us both, what he believes about that situation could look very, very different, depending on what kind of a guy he is. He could be thinking, oh God, I'm terrible at my job. I should have brought out the receipts in the first place. It's my fault that I didn't warn everyone beforehand that there was a problem with the card machines. I didn't handle this well. I should have brought out my manager in the first place. Right? That is just beliefs that guy is holding in his mind. Whereas actually what is true is just there is an inconvenience. Now, if you think about all the times where there's been a piece of news or something bad that you have to share with people, something that you've had to share with multiple people, I'm pretty sure that every single person that you told that good or bad news, whatever it is, they would have all had very different reactions, right? Everyone has different reactions to certain things. Now, the piece of news that you were sharing with them would have been exactly the same, but everyone kicks off in different ways because we are all very different and some people are just going to be dicks, right? So first of all, what we really need to work out is separating the truth from your belief, okay? Now, if the truth happens to be something like, someone has complained because my product isn't quite right. Now, that's fine. That is not something that you need to internalise. That is something external that can be fixed, right? If that truth can help you, then you need to take some action on it. And the action that you should take, and I think this is a fantastic fucking thing to do because I explained how I did it last week, is involve that person in fixing that problem, right? Do not give away your power. You can be really assertive and respectful and insightful without backing down. So in the example that I gave last week, speaking to that person and saying, thank you so much for bringing it to my attention that something isn't right here. I'd really like you to be part of a pilot program where you can help me make this better. Because what that does is it takes so much power back onto your side. Instead of shrinking down and feeling like a little kid being told off by teacher, you are rising up to their level and saying, thank you, we want the same things. I agree that this isn't right. I want you to help me fix it. Now, not going to lie, 9 times out of 10, that person will just be like, nah, you're all right, mate. Can I just have my money back? At which point, you can just say, thank you, fucking next. Like, off they fuck, money back, out of my life, not a problem anymore, right? Now, that's the kind of simple route. That's the route of least resistance. That's if you are not putting any drama into it, if you're not thinking, oh God, everything is terrible, if you're not crying in the corner and thinking, I fucked up really badly, that's the easiest thing that you can do. Involve the person that's complaining and helping make your product, your service, whatever it is, better. If you've realised that the issue at hand is that you're believing something which isn't necessarily true, like this person has complained that my presenting style is crap, and it's the first time that I've heard it and nobody else has ever said that, you need to ask why that's triggered you so much that you think this is worth paying attention to, right? Now, I want to give you 2 examples of when this kind of truth versus belief thing has come up for me. So I was doing a presentation a while back and I had some feedback from someone that my presenting style was wooden. Now, I never in my fucking life have been described as wooden. I am the most over-animated, over-excitable, flailing woman on the planet. You know those things that you get outside of car dealerships, those big flailing inflatable things? Wacky, waving, inflatable, arm flailing tube man. Oh my God, I said it. First time. Yeah, that's what I am like as a human. So when somebody said to me that they thought that my presenting style was wooden, I was just like, get in the sea, mate. That's ridiculous. And I don't believe you, so it doesn't bother me. That was water off a duck's back. Did not pay attention at all. Now, a few years back, I was working with a client who was just fucking awful, probably the worst client I've ever had. And we had a bit of a situation where he accused me of losing some files. Now, it turned out in the end, I had not lost these files. He got me confused with another designer and it all went away and it was absolutely fine. But at the time, it really, really stung because I have said it before in this podcast that I believe myself to be a bit of a scatty person. So when I was being accused of being unorganised, that really hit home because on some level I believed what he was saying. Now, if you take nothing else away from this episode, let it be this. We only take criticism badly when on some level we believe the thing that we're being criticised on, right? When someone tells you something about yourself that you are insecure about, you are going to be triggered and you're going to be upset by that. Like if someone came to me and said, Alex, I don't like your podcast because you don't swear enough and your episodes are too long. I'd be like, well, obviously that's not fucking true. So what are you on about? But there are things that someone could complain about that would really upset me. You know, if I used some kind of slur or something that was offensive to somebody, that would upset me and I'd feel awful about it. If someone came to me and said, I think that you're talking absolute bollocks, that would hurt me because I have such bad imposter syndrome and I would think, oh God, maybe they're right. Maybe I am talking complete crap and this podcast is a waste of time. The point being that you really do take on board that feedback and internalise it and make it mean so much, make it so dramatic when what someone is saying is something that you believe on some level. So if the truth of the matter is something completely neutral, but you're making it mean so much more than that, first things first, I beg you, do not, under any circumstances, be mean to yourself. Okay? If you received bad feedback, do not be mean to yourself. And I'm not just saying that because I am the girl in the bathroom that like fangirls over everyone they meet. No, I'm saying that because it is so counterproductive. Because what happens when you're mean to yourself? Say you get a really shitty comment from someone and you think, oh God, yeah, they're right. I'm terrible at everything and I'm just going to sit here and beat myself up. Do you then go and do your best work? produce your best content, design your best products. No, you fucking don't. You numb out in whatever way is perfectly on brand for you, whether it's binge watching Netflix, shopping way more than you can afford, drinking a whole bottle of God knows what. Whatever it is, you numb out and you avoid and you procrastinate. Okay, so I beg you, do not be mean to yourself when this happens. Instead, look back into the stories that you're telling yourself, which are making you believe that this person is right to criticize you. And why do you believe those mean things about yourself? And this is where a little bit of self-coaching goes a very long way. Now, finally, ask yourself, out of this situation, what do you really want? Okay, what do you really want? Because the harsh truth is that you cannot affect how other people feel. You cannot change that person's mind and convince them that they are wrong and you are magnificent and everything that you've done is wonderful. So what do you want out of this situation? Do you want to improve? In which case, ask them for their feedback. Do some market research. Take a course. Do something to get yourself to that next level. Is someone refusing to pay, but you are absolutely adamant that that's not fair and the money is what you want in that situation? Go after the money. I mean, that absolutely wouldn't be my choice, because the last option I'm going to give you is the one I always go for. The one that I always err towards is wanting peace, right? A lot of the time, in fact, the vast majority of the time, it is not worth my time or my effort or my fucking mental health to deal with, battle with, argue with anyone who is criticizing me. It's just easier to walk away. Let that be a them problem. Let that bitch get back in their Tesla and fuck all the way off. Okay, my darlings. When it comes to criticism, it says so much more about that person than it says about you. Work out what's true. Work out if this is something that can serve you. And then do a bit of digging to work out what has triggered you and why it's triggered you so much. All right, my darlings. I will put the details of the webinar 30th of August in the show notes for this episode. As always, I would love to hear from you about anything that's on your mind. And thank you for listening, my darlings. I will catch you here next week.
Got an idea for a maverick business of your own? Learn how to build a powerful brand that will get people obsessed with our online program, not just a pretty logo. You'll learn a simple step-by-step framework that will kickstart your killer brand and help you find your raving fan base. Find out more today at strangecreativestudio.com.